Well, folks, it seems America just can't help but keep things interesting, can it? With Trump back in the White House, Canada might want to consider investing in some seriously heavy-duty curtains, because today, we're diving into the potential fallout for Canada, now that the US has decided to hit the repeat button on the Trump administration. So grab some poutine, settle in, and let's break down 10 ways Trump's return could end up impacting our friends up north. Alright, let's start with the big one, trade. Now, anyone who remembers the last Trump presidency knows that the man loves a good tariff. And with his America First rhetoric back in full swing, there's a good chance Canada might find itself on the receiving end of some unfavorable trade policies. We're talking potential tariffs on Canadian goods, folks. Lumber, steel, even maple syrup. Nothing is safe. This could mean higher prices for Canadians on everyday products. And that's not even considering the potential impact on Canadian businesses trying to sell their goods south of the border. Remember those dairy disputes? Yeah, those might be making a comeback too. So, yeah, when it comes to trade, Canadians might want to brace themselves for a bumpy ride. Next up, let's talk energy. Trump's love for fossil fuels is no secret. This could be good news for Canada's oil sands in Alberta, at least in the short term. More pipelines, more production, more jobs. Sounds great, right? Well, not so fast. While a Trump presidency might offer a temporary economic boost to Canada's oil industry, it comes at a pretty hefty price: the environment. Trump's environmental policies make a dumpster fire look like a controlled burn. He's basically given the finger to climate change initiatives, and that puts Canada in a tricky spot. Will Canada be willing to sacrifice its environmental commitments for a slice of that sweet, sweet oil money? Only time will tell. Don't forget, Canada's election too is around the corner, and there's high the opposition would win and put in place policies that sync with Trump's creating more jobs in Alberta. Now, let's talk about everyone's favorite topic: money, specifically the Canadian dollar, affectionately known as the loonie. The loonie is a sensitive creature, and nothing sets it off like uncertainty in global markets. And who better to inject uncertainty than Donald J. Trump? A weaker loonie means imports, from electronics to avocados, become more expensive. Canadians might want to brace themselves for a roller coaster ride. Next, let's talk about the border. That 5,525-mile long line in the sand, or mostly forest and lakes, that separates Canada and the US. With Trump's focus on border security, things could get a little more intense. We're talking increased scrutiny, longer wait times, and more awkward questions from Border Patrol agents. For Canadians who frequently cross the border, this could be a major headache. Imagine explaining to your boss that you're late because the border agent was convinced your bag of ketchup chips was a smuggling device. And let's not forget about the potential impact on tourism. Who wants to spend their vacation time stuck in a queue longer than the line for Space Mountain at Disney World? Now let's talk about immigration. Specifically, the potential impact of Trump's immigration policies on Canada. Trump's stance on immigration is, shall we say, firm. Some might even call it hardline. Unsurprisingly, this has led to a significant amount of fear and uncertainty among immigrant communities in the US. And as a result, Canada, with its reputation for being welcoming and inclusive, and for having healthcare that doesn't bankrupt you, has become an increasingly attractive destination for those seeking refuge. We're talking about a potential increase in asylum seekers crossing the border, putting a strain on Canada's immigration system and social services. This influx of asylum seekers could lead to political debates about border security, resource allocation, and even the very definition of what it means to be Canadian. All right, let's move on to something a little less cheery: climate change. With Trump back in the Oval Office, the US won't be winning any awards for environmental stewardship. This puts Canada in a bind. The US and Canada share ecosystems, waterways, and air. When one country pollutes, it affects everyone. Canada might have to tackle climate change alone. They must decide if they'll stick to their commitments despite economic pressure. Now, let's talk about defense. Specifically, how much money Canada spends on it. Trump has this thing about NATO. He seems to think it's like some sort of all-you-can-defend buffet that the United States is footing the bill for. He's constantly complaining that other NATO members, Canada included, aren't pulling their weight when it comes to defense spending. So, with Trump back in charge, Canada can expect to face renewed pressure to increase its military budget. Now, this puts Canada in a tricky position. On one hand, they understand the importance of a strong national defense and being a reliable ally. On the other hand, they'd rather not blow their entire budget on fighter jets and tanks, especially when there are pressing domestic issues like healthcare and education that need funding. Okay, let's talk foreign policy. Trump's approach to foreign policy is unconventional. Some might call it erratic. This puts Canada in a tough spot. Canada and the US have been close allies, like a couple finishing each other's sentences. Canada must tread carefully to avoid Trump's diplomatic misadventures. Now, let's talk about jobs, specifically the potential impact of Trump's economic policies on Canadian jobs. Trump is all about bringing jobs back to America. He's like that friend who goes to a potluck and then tries to leave with all the leftovers. The problem is, he's not always too picky about where those jobs come from. So, if he thinks he can lure American companies back from Canada with promises of lower taxes and fewer regulations, he won't hesitate to do it. The Canadian government might need to get creative to attract new investments and create new job opportunities to offset any potential losses. And finally, let's talk about something a little less tangible but no less important. The potential impact on Canadian culture and society. The US has a way of exporting its cultural baggage, whether the rest of the world wants it or not. And with Trump back in charge, that cultural baggage is likely to get a whole lot heavier. We're talking about the potential for increased polarization on issues like gun control, racial justice, and LGBTQ+ rights. The challenge for Canada will be to stay true to its own values while navigating the choppy waters of a more divided and polarized world. So, there you have it, folks. 10 ways Trump's return to office could impact Canada. From trade wars and border security to climate change and cultural influence, the next 4 years are shaping up to be a wild ride for our neighbors to the north. But hey, Canadians are a resilient bunch. They've survived long winters, Justin Bieber, and even the Maple Leafs' never-ending quest for the Stanley Cup. So I'm confident they'll find a way to weather this storm too. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, some good will come out of all of this. Thanks for watching.